Have you ever walked into like a massive, sprawling superstore? You know, one of those monolithic places that sells absolutely everything?
Right, like everything from flat screen TVs to fresh produce.
Exactly. And you're walking around and you realize they don't carry that one highly specialized product you're looking for.
Yeah, which is always frustrating.
Totally. But then you drive, I don't know, a mile down the street to a tiny, quiet specialty shop, and there it is,
Perfectly stocked.
front and center, almost like it's waiting for you. And as a consumer, it kind of feels like a massive failure on the brand's part, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want your product in the biggest store in town in front of the largest possible
I
audience?
think that would be the goal.
Right. But today, we are going to learn that this is absolutely not a coincidence. So today's source material is a Wikipedia article detailing a hyper-specific marketing metric.
Super specific.
Yeah, it's called Product Category Volume, or PCV. And our mission today, for you listening, is to decode the secret math behind why certain products appear in the specific stores they do.
And why sometimes, counterintuitively, being in the biggest store in town is actually just a terrible strategy for a brand.
Okay, let's unpack this because I'm fascinated. Where do we even begin with understanding the, hidden architecture of how a company decides where its products should actually live?
Well, I mean, we begin by looking at how companies quantify their market access. So to understand why products end up where they do, we have to look at the foundational distribution metrics that marketers use to measure their reach.
Okay, distribution metrics. Got it.
Yeah. At their core, these metrics are the way brands quantify the availability of their products sold through retailers.
Meaning not just the stuff they sell on their own websites.
Right, exactly. Usually this is expressed as a percentage of all potential outlets. So for brands relying on reseller networks, meaning they aren't just selling direct-to-consumer out of their own branded boutiques, these metrics are essentially the dashboard.
Like a health check.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It indicates what percentage of the total market they actually have access to. But, and this is the key, treating every front door as an equal opportunity is a rookie mistake.
Because, I mean, one giant big box retailer moving billions of dollars of inventory is fundamentally different from, the independent mom and pop shop on the corner.
Spot on. Which is why marketers weight these outlets. They don't just count them 1, 2, 3. The traditional, legacy way to do this is with a metric called all commodity volume, or
SEV.
ACV, yeah. And ACV weights outlets by their all commodity sales. It simply asks, how much total stuff of all kinds across all departments does that specific store sell?
So just raw volume.
Pure raw volume.
Yeah.
If a store sells a massive volume of everything combined, it has a massive ACV. It's a whale.
Right.
And for a long time, getting into those high ACV whales was the absolute ultimate goal for any sales team.
Which, I mean, that makes intuitive sense on a surface level. You want to be where the money is changing hands.
Right, you want the foot traffic.
Exactly. But our topic today is a much sharper refinement of that, right? Product category volume, or PCV, takes that raw volume concept and puts blinders on.
It really does.
Because PCV is a weighted measure of distribution based exclusively on store sales within the specific product category.
Yes, within the category.
Right. It examines the share of the relevant product category sold by stores in which a given product has actually gained distribution.
Let's actually ground that in a tangible scenario to illustrate the strategic gulf between the two metrics.
Oh, yeah, an example would be great.
Okay, so let's say you are the marketing director for a company that makes elite carbon-plated running shoes. High-end stuff.
Like $250 a pop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you were chasing ACV, you're looking at that giant warehouse store on the edge of town.
The one that sells literally everything.
Right. They sell groceries, lawnmowers, cheap clothing, electronics. Their
Right.
ACV is astronomical. I mean, they might do $20 million a month in total retail sales.
But, and here's the kicker, maybe only $500 of that $20 million is actually spent on athletic footwear.
Yes, exactly. Meanwhile, the local running shop downtown might only do $50,000 a month in total sales.
Which seems tiny in comparison.
Right, but 100% of those sales are in your specific product category. So PCV forces you to zero in on the share of the relevant category. It essentially isolates the category from the deafening noise of everything else a store might sell.
So it fundamentally shifts the question the brand is asking. You basically transition from asking, is my product in a store where people spend money? to, is my product in a store where people spend money on items exactly like mine?
That's the perfect way to phrase it. And this brings us to the strategic tightrope that marketers are constantly walking. The source text outlines this ongoing structural tension in retail, balancing the push against the pull.
Push and pull. It sounds like the fundamental physics of the retail environment.
It really is the operational reality of physical distribution. So, push refers to the heavy lifting of building and maintaining reseller support.
Like what, specifically?
Well, it involves the capital and sweat equity required to get the stores to actually agree to stock your product, put it on their shelves, and promote it.
Oh, okay.
You're negotiating slotting fees, you're offering trade promotions, you are physically pushing the product into the retail channel.
And then pull is the opposite.
Right. Pull, conversely, is the generation of customer demand. This is your brand marketing, your targeted advertising, your sponsorships. You're pulling the customer into the store with the active intent to seek out your specific product.
Okay, so you push it to the store and pull the customer to the product.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes that balancing these two forces is a constant battle.
Wait, I have to stop you there because my marketer brain is screaming right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Seriously, because if I am allocating massive amounts of capital toward distribution, like paying slotting fees, funding those big end cap displays, I want eyeballs.
You want the traffic.
Right. If that giant superstore has 10,000 people walking through its front doors every single day, I want my high-end running shoes sitting right there by the entrance. I mean, more eyeballs mathematically equals more chances for a conversion, right? Why wouldn't I just chase ACV and push as hard as I can into the highest traffic environment possible?
Because that is the exact logical trap that ruins modern brands.
Really?
Yes. And it is precisely what PCV is designed to prevent. What's fascinating here is that the source text explicitly warns against optimizing for raw eyeballs.
Wow.
PCV measures the ability to convey a product to customers, specifically in outlets where they are already in the psychological mindset to evaluate that category. The text uses a highly visual phrase for brands that rely too heavily on ACV. It says, without focusing on category volume, a product will simply get lost in the aisles.
Lost in the aisles. Man, it paints such a bleak picture of a product just like sitting there completely ignored.
Because context is the invisible variable in conversion rates. If you execute a massive push strategy to get your elite running shoes into that high-traffic superstore, you absolutely have 10,000 people walking past your display.
Okay.
But look at their consumer intent. They are mentally calculating their grocery budget or picking up a prescription or, rushing to grab a cheap t-shirt. They are entirely closed off to evaluating a $200 piece of specialized athletic gear.
Because the intent is violently mismatched.
Exactly.
You have the foot traffic, but you lack the context. You've successfully executed a push strategy to get on the shelf, but the pull completely misfires because the customer, isn't thinking about marathon training while they're picking out a garden hose.
And the financial fallout of that mismatch is severe. I mean, you're paying premium trade spend for that shelf space, but your inventory isn't moving at all. Yeah. Your capital is just tied up in a high ACV store that offers zero PCV value. PCV proves that shopper context matters exponentially more than sheer foot traffic. It aligns the physical push with the psychological pull.
Which, begs an operational question. Let's say a brand listens to this deep dive, runs an audit, and realizes they are caught in the lost in the aisles trap.
It happens all the time.
Right, so they have high ACV, terrible PCV, and their margins are bleeding. How do they actually pivot? They can't just pull all their inventory overnight, right?
No, it requires a systematic reallocation of resources. You begin by tapering off trade spend in those high ACV, low-intent stores.
So stop paying for the premium spot.
Exactly. You stop funding the premium end caps near the grocery aisles. Simultaneously, you redirect that capital into targeted push strategies within high PCV environments.
Okay, that makes sense.
You might offer better margins to specialty running shops or fund in-store clinics for local running clubs at those specific locations. You are actively shrinking your raw distribution footprint to heavily concentrate your presence where buyer intent is highest.
Okay, so if a company recognizes the philosophical necessity of this pivot and wants to maximize its PCV, how do they calculate this metric in the real world? It's one thing to understand the psychology, but it's another to build the actual spreadsheet.
Well, the source material provides the foundational mechanics for this calculation, and we should probably explore how it actually functions rather than just, reading a dry equation.
Right.
The calculation is essentially a ratio comparing two massive pools of sales data.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the math forces a brand to look at their competitors' success, not just their own. Let's invent a hypothetical running shoe brand called, let's call it Aerostride, just to walk through this.
I like it. Aerostride.
Thanks. So to find Aerostride's PCV, we need to establish the denominator, right? The bottom of the fraction. According to the source, this is the total category sales of all outlets.
Right. That is the entire universe of the category. It represents every single dollar spent on running shoes across every possible retail outlet in your defined region, whether Aerostride is sold there or not.
Wow, okay.
So let's say in your target market, the total running shoe category generates $10 million a year. That $10 million is your denominator.
Got it. 10 million. Now we need the numerator, the top of the fraction. The text defines this as the total category sales of outlets carrying the brand. So we look only at the specific stores that actually stock Aerostride shoes.
Right.
Let's say Aerostride has distribution in 50 specialty running shops. We don't just add up the sales of Aerostride shoes, we add up the entire running shoe category sales within those 50 shops.
And that distinction is the entire genius of the metric. You are measuring the total category gravity of your retail partners.
Gravity, I like that.
Yeah. If those 50 specialty shops sell $5 million worth of running shoes annually, inclusive of Nike, Brooks, Hoka, and your Aerostride shoes, then your numerator is 5 million.
Okay, so you divide the 5 million by the 10 million market total, multiply by 100, and Aerostride has a PCV of 50%.
Exactly.
It means Aerostride has successfully gained access to the retail environments that control half of all category spending.
And there is a highly specific operational detail from the text regarding how a store qualifies to be included in that top number. A store's total category sales are added to your numerator as long as it stocks at least one SKU of your brand.
Wait, really? Just a single SKU?
Just one.
So if Aerostride has a catalog of like 30 different shoe models in various colorways, and a major sporting goods store only agrees to carry one basic model in one color, the brand still gets to claim that store's entire category volume in their PCV calculation.
They do. I know it seems incredibly generous on the surface, but it reflects a harsh retail reality.
How so?
Because gaining even a single SKU placement in a high-volume category killer is fiercely competitive. If a retailer that moves massive volume agrees to take on one SKU, you have successfully established a crucial toehold.
You're in the door?
You're in the door. You have proven buyer acceptance in a highly relevant environment, and you now have the market access to theoretically expand that footprint.
Okay, but what does this all mean for the vast majority of brands that aren't multinational conglomerates? I mean, to run that exact formula, Aerostride needs perfect visibility into the total category sales of all outlets.
Which is incredibly hard to get.
Right. They need to know exactly how many dollars their competitors are generating in stores where Aerostride doesn't even have a relationship. Syndicated point-of-sale data from places like Nielsen or IRI costs an absolute fortune.
Oh, it's massively expensive.
And thousands of independent specialty shops don't even syndicate their data anyway. So what happens when a brand simply cannot access this perfect, omniscient financial data?
Well, that is the practical wall that most mid-market marketers hit. Perfect data is a luxury. But the source text outlines a remarkably clever analog workaround for this exact data deficit.
Analog.
Yeah, completely analog. When exact syndicated sales data is unavailable, marketers estimate their PCV by looking at physical space. Specifically, they use the square footage devoted to the relevant category within a store as a proxy for sales volume.
Wait, we are talking about literally measuring the physical footprint, like pacing off the aisles.
Literally pacing off the aisles. The logic underpinning this proxy is actually ironclad. Commercial retail space is one of the most fiercely negotiated and tightly optimized assets on the planet.
That's true. Every inch counts.
Right. Retailers use sophisticated yield management to ensure every square foot is generating maximum profit. Therefore, the physical space a retailer dedicates to a specific category is a direct, undeniable indicator of that category's financial importance to that outlet.
So if you walk into a store and see 60 linear feet of shelving dedicated exclusively to running shoes, you don't need access to their private ledger to know that store moves a high volume of that category.
Exactly.
Conversely, if you see a tiny end cap with like 3 pairs of shoes shoved next to the automotive supplies, you instantly know the category is an afterthought. You use the physical footprint to reverse engineer the hidden financial reality.
By analyzing the physical environment, marketers can approximate their PCV. If your brand has secured distribution in the stores, allocating the largest percentage of their square footage to your category, you can confidently estimate a strong PCV, entirely bypassing the need for expensive syndicated data.
Wait, I have to challenge the reliability of that proxy in the modern retail environment.
Okay, let's hear it.
Big box stores are notorious for massive seasonal floor plan shifts. A home improvement store might dedicate 2,000 square feet to high-end grills and patio furniture in May.
Oh, sure.
But in November, that exact same square footage is dedicated to snowblowers and holiday decorations. So if I'm a grill manufacturer and my sales rep measures the store in May, my square footage proxy is going to suggest a massive PCV opportunity. But for 6 months of the year, that category effectively doesn't exist in that outlet. Doesn't the proxy fall apart the moment seasonality enters the equation?
Well, that highlights the exact limitation of the proxy, and it requires marketers to apply temporal adjustments. You cannot take a snapshot of a highly elastic retail floor plan and treat it as an annualized metric.
So I have to zoom out.
Exactly. Marketers adjusting for seasonality have to calculate the average annual square footage or apply the proxy exclusively during peak category buying windows. The proxy remains a powerful tool, but it requires the analyst to understand the rhythm of the retailer, not just the physical dimensions of the shelf.
It demands an intimate understanding of the physical battleground. You are quite literally fighting for territory. So, to synthesize this deep dive for you listening, we started by picturing that tiny specialized shop and wondering why the premium product was waiting there instead of the mega mart.
Right.
And what we've discovered is that product category volume isn't just a mathematical equation gathering dust in a textbook. It is a defining philosophy of market access.
It forces a brand to be ruthlessly honest about where they actually belong.
Yes, it's about ensuring your product intersects with the customer at the exact moment their intent matches your value proposition. It's about carefully balancing the expensive push of physical distribution against the psychological pull of consumer demand.
A delicate balance.
Very. It's about actively avoiding the margin-crushing trap of getting lost in the aisles, where foot traffic is high but relevance is zero. And when the pristine data isn't available, it's about utilizing ingenious physical proxies, like analyzing the square footage of a shelf, to prove that you were deployed in the right arenas.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it proves that effective retail strategy is an exercise in precision, not volume. It is fundamentally about context over capacity. PCV is the instrument that measures whether your distribution strategy aligns with human behavior.
And that brings us to a final, highly provocative thought that I want to leave you with today. While reviewing the source materials for this deep dive, examining the reference section of the Wikipedia article, we noticed something striking.
We really did.
Alongside foundational academic texts like Marketing Metrics, there were multiple sources cited by authors Deepak Kumar and Claudine Nedelec, and those sources were focused entirely on the mechanics of dropshipping.
Which raises an important question that challenges everything we just established.
It creates an absolutely fascinating paradox. If product category volume as a strategic metric relies entirely on physical constraints, like the very real danger of getting physically lost in the aisles, or relying on the literal physical measurement of square footage as a proxy to reverse engineer financial data, what happens to this metric when the shelf becomes infinitely digital?
It completely breaks the old model.
Totally. In a dropshipping model, where physical inventory doesn't exist until the moment of purchase, a retailer can add 10,000 new SKUs to their storefront in an afternoon without building a single new shelf. The physical constraints evaporate. So how does the concept of PCV survive? What is the digital equivalent of square footage when you are analyzing a competitor's dropshipping site? Is it pixels above the fold?
Or maybe the weighting of their search ranking algorithms.
Exactly. How do you measure the friction of push and pull when the storefront is just a localized web page and the products are sitting in a massive agnostic warehouse halfway across the world?
The psychological need to match product with intent remains identical, but the instruments required to measure that alignment have to be entirely reinvented for a space without physics.
It forces us to completely reimagine the architecture of distribution. So the next time you find that perfectly curated product in that perfectly specialized little shop, remember its presence there is not a coincidence. It is the result of a meticulously calculated metric ensuring it meets you exactly where you are. Thank you for taking this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of retail with us today. We will catch you on the next deep dive.